All right. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. We're talking about the Sumer, the third, part three of Sumer, because there's several parts. We're going to talk about Sumerians again. This is like a little tribute for this week. And, yeah, we're on part three. Now, part four is we're talking about the Gudea or the Gutians, or should I say, yeah, these people, and I think you've seen it a bunch of times on my channel, the Sumerians or the Gudeas or the Gutians or something like that. Neighboring, that'll be part four. We'll talk about that sooner when it comes. And then we talk about King of Ur, Namun, like we talk about the third dynasty. We talked about it from part one and all that. We're going to get to those. We're going to get to those. That's part four, but we're not going to deal with that today. We're dealing with part three only. So part three is basically the Agina, Agina, and it's now, you know, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. So we'll get expounded on it. I don't know. Oh, it's already charged. Good, 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 good. The, get the wiring. So we're gonna get to it right quick. Okay. It's my personal inside, my little lair. They say, it's a work in progress, but I'm not trying to build no studio or anything. It's a lot of things going on. I know the circus era elections can be on hold. All right, so I'm gonna pick up the screen, take my ass out the screen. But yeah, it's like I said, Sumer third, and this is modern Iraq. They would say that's in that area, but that used to be known as Samaria or Sumer. When the last we left Sumer, the so-called Tower of Babel had just had been built at this time. Now a lot of people don't know that. And we just talked about that in part two. And part one was pretty simple. We talk about the basics, and then part two, and modern day Iraq, number one, number two. We talk about the Babylonian and the ziggurats and all that. We talked about, but this time we're talking about something totally different. We're talking about the dynasties now. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's got about, I think Sumer's got about like seven pieces of these. I'm gonna be on this for a minute, not making them too long, but it's got up to seven parts. Okay. Because when you get to the part where part four talks about the other dynasties, and number five, we're talking about the Amorite invasion. We'll talk about that sooner or later, the Amorite invasion, and we'll get to that. Like four and five, we will talk about part four and five on the same tip. We'll do that because I think those are the shortest, and it ain't really much. And we're gonna get into it. And then number six is you talking about the Assyrians, Kassites, and we're talking about the writings and shit like that. Then you get to the ziggurats and all that temples and stuff. We're going to get into more modern stuff. And you look at the hair depictions, it's an idea. So that's number six. Sumer is pretty easy. Then number seven, the Chaldeans, or some people pronounce it Chaldeans, or it's actually pronounced Chaldeans, by the way. The Chaldeans is what you see their history. We're going to definitely talk about that, and we're going to talk about all the we're going to skip the Turkish nonsense, but we'll talk about the Arab conquest. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the Ottoman Empire. We're going to talk a little bit, and then Black Iraqis and all this other stuff. We're going to talk about a little bit of the modern. So six and seven will have their own parts. Four and five, look out for that. That's going to be one thing. Um, I'm going to talk about that sooner and later, but I will stick to part three just for now. Just part three is a little longer. Um, four and five is kind of like I want them conjoined together, and you'll see, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So, but today of this week, we're going to talk about number three. Next week will be four and five. I'll drop that sooner or later, but I'm not going to drop it this week. I might do it sometime, I might drop in on the weekend, but who knows about the recording? Okay, it is now many dynasties, many kings later. The kingship has been taken to the city of Lagash. Urk Agina is the last and the last most Pontius of king of this dynasty. Lagash is so-called Ignima. Ignima has introduced many socials and reforms of the enact addicts released to the brothers of the enslavements of caused by running of the up of debts, but high interest rates on the capital as much as a 33.3%, but has often led enslaving one's own children, but temporarily until the debris were paid of paid off of Urk Agina's remnants. Yeah, remnants three deaths by okay, three deaths by decree. Okay. Urk Agina itself was a usurper, like wizardry and all that, like wizards and stuff. Usurpers, they always had them back then. That's what it was called back then. Was the usurper that previous rulers of Lagash, especially the previous of the usurpers installed by the priesthood, had terribly oppressed the people, but both economically and militarily. But they are, I mean, militarily, there was an excessive taxes on much occasions at the weddings and the funerals, and the land was bought by the government. That's what you got today in America, based off that other cultures, and they're doing that now. You see in Western cultures doing the same thing, and they adopt the old Sumerian principles and all that. That's what you see today. It's not new, but this is more modernized. You see it now, and people can fight their way, but it's not that easy. They still have control. But that's a whole nother topic on that. Government officials far below market and value, but it's also claimed to have been the um the Ningagrisus and the operation of the poor. The oppression of the poor, but has destroyed much at the bureaucracy for the priests to be cut their income and ended their influence. But they created the near Elithic state. Yeah, near Elithic state, but it is doing it in the weaken the Lagash to the weaken to the Lagash where the point where it can no longer defend itself. Not money was coming to the royal treasury, but this weakness encouraged Lagash Zagisi, Zagagasi of the Ung attack, the Lagasi, yeah, Zagasi Ung attack. So it led on attack of the people. So we know what's happened. The Lugagi Zagasi or something like that. Lugasi right here, this group right here. It says of the Ung sacked Lagash and burnt all the holy temples, but the priests of Lagash, who Urk Agina has chastised, have held the the Lugai Zagagasi Urk Agina and fled to the town of Gershu, which was possessions of the Lagash, but did not seem to have fallen. The Ung here that disappears from the history, but the documents proclaiming his reforms are the oldest in history to speak of freedom. But after his victory, King Lagahi Zagagasi offered a prayer. May the lands peacefully in the meadows of may all mankind, there are like plants and herbs, like sheepfolds. Okay. All the sheepfolds and increase of may people have the land and upon the fair enough, a fair upon earth, and the good fortune which the gods have decreased for me, but may they never after, until the eternity may have be the furthermost shepherd. Yeah, that's how it is, man. You get this thing going and just He said, misfortune for the shepherd, furthermost, but okay, the internal may have be. That's what it says right here in the blue parentheses. Okay. But let's take to the pause and now look at something unusual. Unfortunately, seemingly all the ancient civilizations in their early stages engaged in the practice of killing and royal countries, I mean, quarters, their royal quarters and burying them with the decrease of the king or queen. Also, that they may have served the decrease of the king and queen in the afterlife. But the discovery by archaeologist Leonard Woodley of the royal tombs at Ur bear proof of this practice. The royal tomb of Poyabi, Queen Poyabi. Okay, that's the Poyabi's head symbol, headdress, and then you see the King Lugagasi, the king right here, and that's the idols that they have. But you know how you look at it, and that's the tomb of Puabi. And then it said the royal tomb of the Queen Puabi at Ur, like the tomb of the king of um, King Tut, Takanumu of Egypt. King Tut, I'm just gonna say King Tut. He's got a mouthful name. Akhenum, yeah, King Tut Akhenum of Egypt, right? But it was especially extraordinary find because it was intact. It was intact and it escaped looting and throughout the millennia. But the tomb featured vaulted chamber set at the bottom of the deep depth pit. But lady was buried, lying on a wooden barrier. But she was identified by a cylinder and seal bearing. Her name was which was found on her body. So the barely feet tall Puabi was a 40-year-old when she died. She was buried with her servants. Burial party adorned with the jewelry had apparently been celebrating with the elaborate feast just prior to their burial. Queen Puabi were elaborate the headdress of the gold leaves and the gold ribbons, strands of the lapis and lazuli and the chameleon beads, and carnelian beads at the tall comb of the gold chokers. But the necklace and then a pair of large crescents in the shape of the earrings, but may have upper body and then covered in the stages of the heads, made of precious metals and then the semi-precious stones and stretching in her shoulders. But it's as a with the bait with the decorated and in her fingers. Okay, as for the quarters and all that. So it talks about how she was buried in all this leaves and then the queen and all that. That's how the burial looked. So Sargon, the Akkadians, you know what I'm saying? And we're talking about these people and Sargon. So so that's what you that's what you see right now. But now look at now take our history back by the Lagasse in the time of the nearest Semites. But speaking of the Egyptian language, living in the land just north of Sumer, were serving the were serving as mercenaries. But the Sumerians, we do not know what these people called their central Mesopotamian homeland. So we refer to them as Akkadians because of the city of Sargon. One will later build their will build their name. I Agade or something like that. Agade, like it's in Mesopotamia. That's the name right there. It's Agde. Excuse me, Agde. Okay, Sargon is known as almost entirely from the legends and then it takes to the files of regulation throughout the Mesopotamian history, but not for discounts of these damn notifications. Okay. Sorry about that, y'all. Mesopotamian history, but not that the documents were written during his lifetime. But this is a lack of contemporary record is explained by the fact that that was the capital of Agade, which which was built and he never been located in a exacerbated, mean discovered, but it was destroyed at the end of the dynasty that Sargon founded and was never again inhabited, at least under the name of Agde. But according to folktale, Sargon was a self-made man, humble origins. According to legend, a gardener have found him a baby floating in the basket on the river, brought him up in his own. But calling sounds familiar. His father is unknown. His own name during his childhood is also unknown, but his mother is said to have the minor priestess temple prostitute. That's what they say, right? In a town on the middle of Euphrates. But the rising, therefore, without the helping of the influence of the relations of he attained at the most cup barrier to the end seas of the city of Kish, which is north of Sumer. But the events of the wood would bring him in supremacy was the later he defeated the king Laga Zagasi of Urk, right? Lagasi of Urk and Luge Zagasi of again have already united the cities in the Sumer and defeating by the turn, and he hath claim to the rule in the lands. And not only if the Sumerian city states, but also those were far west as the Mediterranean Sea. But before the Sargon began to take the Lugahi Zagasi, had must first take Kish, right? That's what they say. Take Kish, right? That's what they say. But now then there's a part of the story how Sargon the first, Sargon the Great became the king of Kish. But the tablet in that this story has taken from was damaged and incomplete. Nerves is acting up. So nerves is acting up. So in the blue parentheses on one day after even he arrived in Sargon, Sargon, and then had brought up to the regular deliveries, but then to the place of Ur and Zaba and Kish was sleeping in a dreaming and in a holy bedchamber, but his holy residence was called in a dream was about did it not put in the words, but did not discuss in the words of anyone. After Sargon had received the regular deliveries for the places of Ur and Zaba, but after 5 or 10 days have passed, King Zabra and the missing and became the frightening in his residence. But like the lion urinated, sprinkling his legs, but the urine contained blood and pus. But he blood and pus. But he, after 5 or 10 days have passed, King Ur Zaba missing and had became frightened in his residence. But like a lion urinated, sprinkling his. I read that part. My fault. Excuse me. But he was troubled. Excuse me. He was troubled. He was afraid, like the fish floundering in brackish water. But it was then the cup barrier of the Azina and wine houses of Sargon down the sleeping down the stream. Okay, and it says all this other stuff here, and yeah, this is like a the readings and his writings in the blue. So that's the slavery part, Arcadian prison award. You know, you can see that. We'll skip that. For the lack of space, we must cut this short story because Sumerians or Zaba's plan fails. Sargon is not killed by the Belatilika, but rather Zarkon kills Zaba and became king of Kish. With Kish was has been based, he goes on to conquer the other cities, but the victory was unsure. However, only by numerous battles, since each city hopped in to regain its independence from the the Lugal Zakagashi, excuse me, without submitting to the new order of Sargon. But Sargon became king over the southern Mesopotamia for the first great ruler of whom, rather than the Sumerians and the Semitic tongue known as an Akkadian, was naturally from birth. It may have been before the exploits, but he was gathering followers and an army that Sargon named himself Sharakin, rightful king. It supported in the accessions of the achieved in this establishment city throughout the hereditary successors. Historical records are still no meager However, there's more complete grip and information relating to this period. But after his king, we get this bit of propaganda. So that's the incomplete. We're going to talk about that. Y'all give me 1 second and I'm going to go on mute. I'll be right back. All right. Okay, back at it again. Back at it again. Make sure no distractions. Okay. Okay, Sargon the Legend translation incomplete. Sargon. Okay, number one, it says Sargon the mighty king, king of Arcadia, am I? Number two, my mother was lowly my father, I did not know. Number three, the brother of my father dwelt in the mountain. Number four, my city of Asa Paranu, Asa, which is situated in the bank of the Paratu. You means Euphrates, right? Modern day Euphrates, right? That's number four. Number five, my lovely mother conceived me in a secret. In secret, she brought me forth. Number six, she placed me in a basket of reeds, and she closed my entrance with the batumen, something like that, with the batumen. Okay. Number seven, she cast me to upon the rivers which did not overflow me. Number eight, the river carried me; it brought me to Aki, the irrigator. Aki the irrigator. Okay. And number nine, Aki the irrigator is the goodness of his heart, and then lifted me out. And number 10, Aki the irrigator has his own son brought me up. Number 11, uh, Aki the irrigator as his gardener appointed me. And number 12, when I was a gardener, the goodness of the Ishtar loved me. And number 13, for the 4 years I've ruled in the kingdom. 14, the black headed peoples I've governed. Number 15, the mighty mountains with axes of bronze I destroy, etc., etc. That's what it says. This is incomplete translation. So let's read right here. Sargon was a ambitious king, is not content with just dominating Sumer, but to continue to defend cities through the middle of Euphrates and then into the northern Syria, but other and the silver rich and the mountain of the southern Anatolia, which was called Anatolia at the time. And he also dominated Susa, the city state of Elam, known as Persia now, right? Known as modern day Iran or Iran. Well, most people pronounce it Iran or Iran. They would say, right, which can encompass of the Zargura and mountains of western Iranian Elam is also where the only true contemporary record of his reign, the record of his reign has been discovered. I mean, it's uncovered, but it's also has such as a fame which is merchants in the central Anatolia city, but the center of modern Turkey, but begged his intervene in his local and scorching of the legend in Sargon in the band of the warriors, but made it a fabulous journey to this will be unlocated. But the city of Bershkanan, or should I say Pushhan at the end, which has title more than the appearance was needed to settle. and depends. But yeah, but that's this guy right here. That's the figurine of 2,700 BCE by Nupar Altar figurine. That's like a figurine of that person, but it explaining. But this is what Akkadian Empire will look like, and mountains, Elam, which are known as modern day Iran or Iran, but and, the Euphrates River and Persia and all this other. This is what you would call Mesopotamia and Laurel, northern part. Connections flourish. Taurus Mountains, yes. That's the battles and all this stuff. We're not gonna get into that. And the Gutans, we're gonna talk about them next week. We're gonna read a little bit about them. How much time we got? Let's see how much time we got. Oh, we got 26 minutes. We almost done. Okay. The Gutans from the mountains, the Sumer, modern Iran, invaded the end of the northern Sea rain, cast the destruction, breakdowns, communication, the Gutan. Okay, okay. And it talks about that, the Gutan cities. But I just read this first part half, but this is what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about part 4, that whole experience of that. We talk a little bit about it here. So shouts out to everybody. I'm going to end it right here. But yeah, the Sumerian thing, this is part 3. We're just going to get used to it. Yeah, it's encyclopedia and all that stuff. We talk about the Urk Aginas in Samaria. We talk about that at the beginning, and we talked about the guy that's going to rule this part. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And that's it. That's it on that. But basically, like I said, we understand what's what. So part 3, we just spoke on what Akkadians and all this stuff. We're going to talk about that. We talked a little bit about that, and we know that this matters to most people and things like that. So when you're talking about subjects like this, you stay on task. What's at hand? So me personally, I'm just going to keep it short and just keep it sweet. So with that, shalom to the people of Israel until the Gentiles get this knowledge. And yes, this is part 3 of Sumer 3. Yes. And I'll see y'all next time. Yes, we're going to talk about 4 and 5 about the Gutians, and we're going to talk about the rest of Sumer as well. So with that, I'm signing off and I'm out.